Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, your go-to source for inside stories, cutting-edge research, and the latest updates in the world of dairy farming. For the 67th episode, we discover who will pay for methane-reducing feed additives in dairy farming. So please grab a glass of milk, sit back, and let's get started with this week's episode.
Climate change is accelerating, and methane emissions from dairy farms contribute significantly to the issue. With fresh pledges to cut greenhouse gas emissions, the pressure is on. However, lowering emissions is not without costs. Consider the price of DSM's Bovaer product, 30 cents per dairy cow each day. That builds up quickly. So, who will pay for these methane-reducing feed additives? This problem is increasingly severe owing to the cost difference between these additions and existing carbon offsets. Will food businesses bear the load, or will farmers bear the cost? This difficulty may impact the sustainability of methane reduction initiatives in the dairy business.
Methane emissions from dairy farms are a major environmental problem. Enteric fermentation, a normal digestive process in cows, emits methane, a potent greenhouse gas. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, methane has approximately 25 times the global warming potential of carbon dioxide over 100 years. Reducing these emissions is critical for ensuring sustainable dairy production and addressing climate change. To this end, we need feed additives that reduce methane. These additives are meant to be added to cow feed to reduce methane generation during digestion. Two critical products driving this innovation are DSM's Bovaer and Additives. Bovaer, a feed supplement permitted in various European nations, claims to lower enteric methane by about 30% per cow. However, it costs around 30 cents per dairy cow daily, Bloomberg. Conversely, Additives reduces enteric methane by about 8.4%, with over 150,000 cows in the United States currently benefiting from its usage. While both devices have potential, their use begs the issue of who will shoulder the expenses. Companies have pledged to lower greenhouse gas emissions, but will they invest in farm-level technologies? This is the most critical problem confronting the industry today.
The statistics remain pretty small when we look at current adoption rates of methane-reducing feed additives. According to Bloomberg, DSM's Bovaer is only given to around 100,000 cattle worldwide. In the United States, a separate substance, Additives, is used on over 150,000 cattle. While these data indicate modest growth, they fall short compared to the size of the dairy business. The expenses of these items are high. Bovaer, for example, costs around 30 cents per cow each day. This may not seem like much, but it adds up rapidly on more giant farms. Bovaer saves around $100 for every ton of CO2 equivalent greenhouse gas. The discrepancy is apparent compared to the current market price for carbon offsets, which runs between $5 and $10 per ton. Companies wanting to offset their emissions will find these methane inhibitors rather pricey. This difference raises an important question. Who will foot the bill? Dairy producers already have low profit margins and cannot bear these additional expenditures alone. Will food firms already pledge to lower greenhouse gas emissions and step forward to help producers? The economic dynamics between upstream and downstream parties have yet to converge in favor of universal adoption.
Government rules and subsidies play an important role in encouraging the use of methane-reducing feed additives. Various initiatives and incentives might significantly impact farmers contemplating this change. Several national and regional governments provide financial assistance for sustainable agricultural methods. For example, the European Union's Common Agricultural Policy, CAP, provides subsidies for ecologically beneficial agricultural practices, which may include methane reduction programs. In the United States, initiatives such as the USDA's Environmental Quality Incentives Program, EQIP, provide financial and technical assistance to farmers who apply conservation methods. While not intended primarily for methane-reducing feed additives, these projects reflect a more significant commitment to sustainable agriculture that may expand to incorporate specific methane reduction measures. Looking ahead, the potential for future policy development is promising. With the global focus on climate change intensifying, nations are under increasing pressure to meet their carbon reduction targets. This could lead to future legislation that includes dedicated funding for agricultural methane reduction solutions. Moreover, the emergence of private-public partnerships could further boost these efforts, pooling resources to promote the use of these additives. For example, California's Cap-and-Trade program now supports methane reductions, and future legislative changes may enhance explicit assistance for feed additives. Farmers should know these are developing chances to profit from prospective subsidies and incentives.
Let's turn our attention to the consumer perspective. Are consumers willing to pay more for dairy products with a lower environmental impact? The answer is increasingly evident. According to the International Food Information Council's 2021 survey, 42% of consumers are willing to pay a premium for sustainable food. The growing awareness and demand for eco-friendly products are pivotal in steering market trends. How does this affect who pays for these additions? Suppose customers have a clear preference and are ready to pay a premium for these methane-reducing diets. In that case, food corporations will likely invest in them. This, in turn, might lead to dairy and beef producers obtaining subsidies or increased milk premiums for adopting such chemicals. The market may transfer part of the financial burden from farmers to end customers. However, for this shift to occur, consumer awareness is crucial. Producers need to educate consumers about the environmental benefits of these products to justify the higher prices. Would you pay more if the label stated, "produced with 30% fewer emissions"? If the answer is yes, we could be heading towards a future where market demand can help bear the costs of these environmentally beneficial solutions.
Let's examine the long-term economic advantages of using methane-reducing feed additives. You might think, okay, I get the initial cost, but what's in it for me down the road? That's a fair question. First, evaluate regulatory incentives. Governments worldwide are increasingly focused on lowering greenhouse gas emissions. As a result, dairy farms that take proactive steps to minimize methane emissions may be eligible for future subsidies and tax advantages. Imagine being rewarded financially for doing the right thing. That seems fantastic, right? Then there's the possibility of market benefits. Consumers are becoming more environmentally sensitive and ready to pay a premium for sustainably produced items. Adopting these additives enables you to brand your dairy products as green or low emission, which will appeal to this increasing market group. Isn't it feasible that becoming a market leader in sustainability will distinguish you from the competition? Let us also discuss collaborations. Large food corporations have made substantial efforts to lower their carbon footprints. Your farm might become an appealing partner for these businesses, perhaps leading to long-term contracts or higher pricing for your eco-friendly food. Who wouldn't desire such a solid income? Finally, think about the possibility of future carbon credit programs. Carbon offsets trade between $5 and $10 per ton of CO2 equivalent. By lowering methane emissions, you may earn carbon credits that grow in value over time. It's like having an investment that increases while you're sleeping. So although the costs of methane-reducing feed additives are immediate and obvious, the long-term benefits may exceed them significantly. It is not only about lowering emissions, but also about preparing your dairy farm for future success. Are you prepared to view the broader picture?
What are the prospects for methane-reducing feed additives in dairy farming? It's an important topic, and continuing research illuminates the path ahead. For example, DSM is still researching Bovaer to reduce costs and improve efficacy. Other firms also compete, developing creative methods to cut costs or increase effectiveness. There is optimism that breakthroughs in biotechnology will result in more economical alternatives. Researchers are investigating natural additions, genetic changes, and precision farming approaches to minimize methane emissions successfully. Consider a future where these technologies are so efficient and cost-effective that dairy producers have no reason not to use them. Tighter restrictions, improved incentives, and cooperation among farmers, software developers, and regulators might dramatically transform the business. Furthermore, the roles of stakeholders, farmers, feed businesses, and government agencies will change. Farmers may get more substantial assistance from governments that provide subsidies or tax incentives for using environmentally friendly technology, Market demand and regulatory restrictions will likely drive feed firms to push the boundaries and produce groundbreaking products. Meanwhile, food firms may need to take a more active role, maybe by giving higher pricing for environmentally friendly milk to guarantee a more sustainable supply chain. Ultimately, the future of methane-reducing feed additives is dependent on joint efforts. Farmers, researchers, technology businesses, and governments must collaborate. With the appropriate motivation and innovation, we may lead the path to a greener future in dairy production.
While methane-reducing feed additives like DSM's Bovaer and Agalin show promise, they are not without limits and hurdles. First, there are possible adverse effects. We don't fully understand how these substances influence animal health in the long run. Could they affect milk production or animal welfare? A more detailed study is required to address these problems. Then there's the economic feasibility, which is particularly important for small-scale producers. Can everyone afford to use these supplements in their feeding regimen? With Bovaer costing 30 cents per cow daily, expenditures may soon increase. This may be an acceptable expenditure for significant enterprises, but it might be a substantial impediment for smaller farms already working on razor-thin margins. Furthermore, the existing market for carbon offsets poses a challenge. Why would businesses choose the more costly option when carbon offsets are substantially cheaper, $5 to $10 per ton, than the $100 per ton equivalent Bovaer provides? This mismatch makes no economic sense unless food firms pay farmers' costs. Last but not least, the adoption of technology is still low. With just 100,000 cows on Bovaer globally and 150,000 on Agalin in the United States, broad acceptance has yet to materialize. This low acceptance rate suggests that additional campaigning and potential regulatory reforms are required to expand these solutions successfully. Thus, although the promise of methane-reducing feed additives is appealing, multiple challenges must be addressed before they become a feasible alternative for all farmers.
Methane-reducing feed additives may be crucial in resolving the environmental issues related to dairy production. Products such as DSM's Bovaer and Agalin show promising outcomes, but their high pricing and low acceptance rates provide substantial impediments. The essential issue remains: who will shoulder the financial burden of its implementation? Is it the dairy farmers, the food manufacturers, or a coordinated effort? Finding a long-term strategy to support these chemicals is critical. Dairy producers, who already have low profit margins, may be unable to bear the expenses alone. However, the potential long-term advantages, such as achieving greenhouse gas goals, boosting customer trust, and eventually contributing to a healthier world, may exceed the upfront costs. As you analyze these arguments, consider the more significant ramifications. Reducing methane emissions is more than simply achieving requirements. It is about ensuring the dairy industry's future and improving our environmental responsibility. Who will invest in that future?
Thank you for tuning in to the Bullvine Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's insightful discussion. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Catch you next time on the Bullvine Podcast, where bovine expertise and community come together.